Hello Serie A fan. Dark cloud descended over Milan this week as Inter missed the chance to go top, and Milan are left looking for a silver lining after they're handed a beating by Ledea and tempers flared in the Coppa Derby. Elsewhere, the transfer market's in full swing as teams rush to reinforce before the deadline and sign a copy-paste henchman of their own in this episode of Scudetto. Hi everyone and welcome to Scudetto. It's been another week of high drama in Serie A and in the Coppa Italia. So plenty for us to get into on the football front. And a little bit later on, we've got a new feature to introduce to you. So do stick around for that. But first, welcome back to the starting lineup. Kenny Wastel, how are you getting on?
Good. Thanks. Glad to get the call up.
And Boaz is back as ever. Boaz, how are you this week?
As the official statistician of the pod, I noticed that I'm often saying I'm great, I'm fine, but I mean it wouldn't make a very interesting pod if I said I was depressed and having an awful time of it. So I'm great, I'm fine.
I thought you were going to tell me as the official statistician that you had the 100% attendance rate to the podcast.
I have 100% I'm great rate apparently, and also I'm ever present so far. I'm at 90 minutes every game.
I think we're doing a bit better for beers this week as well. Kenny, have you got something to share with us?
Of course. I've got Tempest Brewing Company Peach Sour. I've only ever had a couple of sours before. I'm not completely sold on them, but I'm going to give this one a go because I'm trying to be a little bit adventurous.
A little bit fruity.
Yeah, a little bit fruity. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice, yeah. Sour beers are really big over here. I had a few at the start when we first started doing this, if you remember. Blueberry sour was the best one, I thought. Anyway, yeah, let me know how it is. And Buzz, how about you? What have you got?
I've got, of course, it's an IPA, and it's a local brewery called Gibor, which means the hero. I've never had it before, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and this is my last week on the ginger beers. Coming towards the end of the month. I've just got classic standard Fentimans ginger beer. It's not as good as the one I had last week, to be honest, but it's it's still ginger beer. It's all right. Not sure anyone cares.
This peach sour is all right. I'm gonna, I think, be forming my judgment as I get through the can because it just always kind of take me by surprise how little they taste like most other beers.
I didn't watch your face when you sipped it. I'll watch it now. Yeah, it looks mildly sour.
I didn't mention, but the beer I had last week was terrible, awful, and this is already a complete new experience for me.
Fantastic news. Right, let's talk about some of the games. So first, we need to recap briefly the Scudetto derby. Milan 0, Atalanta 3. The main reason we need to talk about these two teams is relating to the headlines they were generating about their Coppa fixtures, but as it's the Scudetto derby and as they faced each other, let's just start by talking about that game. And we're going to get an apology from Boaz in a bit, but maybe we start by just praising Atalanta, Kenny.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we do that, can I just say that I hope you guys now know your Gozens from your Freuders and Hattibors. But yes, Atalanta were absolutely sensational. I think we have to kind of start off by saying just how good Ilicic is and how good he was in this game, right back to his best, the Ilicic that we knew from last season. I think, I mean, this is obviously the week that Gomez has finalized his move to Sevilla, and I think it has to be said that Atalanta have looked a lot better since Gomez has actually been out of the squad. And it's sad to say that because he has been the star of this, what is arguably the best Atalanta side, certainly of my lifetime. So it is sad to say that, but they picked up 8 wins and 4 draws since then. They're looking really, really good. And I know that Boaz had some frustrations during this game, and I think some of them were justified. But overall, Atalanta played Milan off the park, really. And I think probably most people will agree with Boaz as well. I'm sure that the better team on the day won.
Yeah, Boaz, let you come in there. Would you agree? And what happened to Milan?
I think perhaps saying the better team on the day won is even a little bit restrictive. The better team, full stop, won. It was clear that one of the teams on the pitch was a Champions League team and the other team was a Europa League team. it would have been crazy if you told me 10, 15 years ago that the roles would be Milan in the Europa League spot, but such is life. Overall, it seemed that the Atalanta midfield, but I seemingly can't name, pretty much bossed the midfield duo of Kessie and Tonali, who felt like they were children playing with adults, pretty much. And Gasperini got his tactics just right, including his pre-match mind games that obviously got under my skin, and I guess they might have got under the skin of one or two Milan players as well. And now is the start of the real hard work for Milan. We're exactly at the halfway point of the season, and tomorrow, as this episode comes out, there will be the beginning of the first round of the return legs begins. So exciting times all around, and what a season we've decided to start a podcast on.
Absolutely. You said obviously the hard work starts for Milan now, which absolutely true. At least they're not in the Coppa anymore. They don't have that to worry about, which we'll get to in a minute. But it's a tough period coming up for Atalanta in terms of fixture congestion as well, isn't it, Kenny?
Yeah, absolutely. So they obviously, this is probably getting onto the where you started with the Coppa Italia results. Atalanta put in an incredible performance with 10 men for the last half an hour or so against Lazio, and managed to come out with a 3-2 win, and a deserved 3-2 win at that, in what was an absolutely incredible game of football that had absolutely everything. But the result of that is that they've now got 2 Coppa Italia semi-finals to look forward to. They've got the European exploits. I think these next couple of months are really going to stretch that Atalanta squad to the absolute max. It was something that they did at the start of the season. They brought in reinforcements to have a bigger squad, and we're just about to find out whether that will pay off, really.
Yeah, and I guess we do need to talk about the Milan's Coppa game as well, the Milan derby that they lost 2-1 to Inter. A game that was really an explosive fixture, I guess it would be fair to say, that was really dominated by the feud and subsequent sending off in the second half of Zlatan Ibrahimovic following his feud with Romelu Lukaku, which came to a head just on the break of half time. It's been kind of dominating the media discussion in Italy and abroad as well.
So Zlatan started the week with some trash talk with Atalanta's Zapata, and at the time it was kind of cute, you know. He told Zapata that he's scored more goals than Zapata has played games. It's kind of easy to give it all that when you're losing, and to be honest, Martin de Roon had the best response by pretty much laughing at him and playing the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme as the background. But as the week proceeded, Zlatan was involved in yet another altercation, and this one seemed a little bit more nasty. Without going into the things that were said, I felt that both players didn't really put the best show of themselves. At the end of the day, it's as we would say in Italy, it's a figura di merda for both of them. It really looks childish. It doesn't look good, basically. And at the end of the day, I'm sure Lukaku will feel that he's won this particular battle because he ended up scoring a penalty, and also his team ended up winning. But as I said, neither player came out of it looking great.
Yeah, and I think these are two players who are widely liked for very different reasons. Neither of them covered themselves in glory, as Boaz said. Some very, I wouldn't want to repeat. There have been questions as to, as to what was meant by some of the things that were said. Either way, I think some nasty things. And it's true that on the football field, lots of things get said that don't get picked up on, that are there to just wind people up. But there are times when you cross the line. I think both players actually crossed the line on this point. One more so than the other. But yeah.
And of course, this situation is exasperated by the fact that there's no fans in the stadium, and so we hear every single word. The microphones are picking up everything they say. I'm sure we're going to get on to Inter later, but that was another case where we heard something from home that usually we wouldn't be privy to.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not the remarks of Zlatan were racist. He's come out and denied that in the press. Reportedly addressed all of the Milan players at the end of the game just to assure them that his intentions weren't racist, which I'm sure is true. I mean, from my perspective, it's just why say something that risks tapping into what is a racist stereotype? Like you mentioned before, Kenny, like, would you have said that to a white player is the question that you have to be asking.
Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable with what Zlatan. I was trying to be more opaque about it, perhaps, than than you've done there by asking the question out front. But I'm very uncomfortable with what Zlatan said, and I do agree with you. I'm sure that his intentions weren't racist, but that I think is not the things that you said are not good.
And when you mentioned his apology, I thought that was a little bit half-hearted as well, because he has a little mention that all humans are the same, but some players are better than others. And I know Zlatan a lot of time is playing a character, but maybe at times when you're accused of saying something that could potentially be racist or even insensitive, maybe that's a time where you can break character and be like, look, I didn't mean it. I apologize, and maybe reach out to Lukaku. But obviously, I'm sure stuff is going on behind closed doors that we're unaware of.
Yeah, we've probably said enough about that. Let's talk about Roma. We've actually had we spoke about Roma at some length last week, Boaz, and their week from hell. They've had something of a better, a week that's ended a bit better with a last-minute win in their league game rematch against Spezia. So, yeah, do you think Fonseca deserves a bit of credit for this?
It's never boring in the capital. It's crazy that we're talking about a manager whose role is potentially at risk when the club is in third position, if I'm not mistaken, and also they're playing some fantastic football. We've given them some honourable mentions throughout the season and to them as a team, and also to various players, because they're truly a delight to watch when they're on. They've had a couple of dodgy results, and also they've had the two clerical errors that we mentioned. That, to be honest, that's a bit, they need to sort that stuff out. But considering the expectations at the start of the season, any criticism of Fonseca and Rome at the moment is out of place. Having said that, they really did have to work hard to get the win against Spezia. They conceded an equalizer in the 90th minute, and they managed to get their winner to win 4-3 in the 94th minute. Some would argue that this is kind of this show of unity behind the Fonseca, and if they didn't believe in the manager, they would have just given up and accepted the draw. But at the same time, it's kind of dodgy that the team was leading 3-1, and really that's the time when they should have put it to bed. In an earlier episode, we mentioned that Roma were very good at scoring 1 or 2 goals really early in the game and then kind of killing the game off. Obviously, that's not been happening in the last couple of games, and Fonseca maybe needs to sort things out. And lastly, we should probably mention that there was a mini mutiny in Rome this week. Players were refusing to come out to train. They stayed in the change room, and ultimately the player liaison who they wanted back has not been hired back, and Dzeko has been left out of the team for 2 games in a row. As I said at the very beginning, never boring in the capital.
Not just left out of the team, he's actually been training alone. And at the beginning, I think that was partly rehabilitation from injury, but apparently he turned up in the changing room and said, all right, I'm ready to join the rest of the group, and was told, actually, we'd prefer if you continue to train alone. So that's your club captain, or that's who was your club captain. So I to say it was a good week, I think is perhaps a bit of a stretch.
It was better than last week.
Yes, yeah, an improvement, but still, all is still not well.
Yeah, we'll come back to Roma a little bit in the transfer roundup later, and maybe some more news on where Dzeko might potentially be heading. But first, let's discuss Inter, because we were just talking about Milan's loss. Obviously, gave Inter the chance to go top, steal the winter champion crown, and they missed that opportunity. 0-0 draw with Udinese, and Conte didn't seem too happy about it, did he, Buzz?
So first of all, we need to give a mention to our friend Christian Eriksen, who scored a 97th minute free kick in the cup derby that won it for Inter. I think what a time to shine, and suddenly this brought out a very different Conte, whose quotes were a little bit bizarre, if you ask me. He was saying that, we all really love Christian. He's such a lovely guy. He's just a little bit shy. And this is the same guy who we were saying, look, I've given him plenty of chances and he's never taken them just a few weeks ago. So again, the Conte is like, he's bipolar sometimes. The different Conte comes out for different interviews.
And apparently off the transfer list now, Ericsson, according to, I think it was the Corriere dello Sport reporting that he's no longer for sale. Just one free kick is all it took. In fairness, it is Inter's first free kick goal in over 2 years, wasn't it, at Boaz? You might.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, so that's all it took.
And it was a good free kick.
It was a good free kick. It was a great free kick. We've seen him take plenty of those for Spurs as well. So.
And you mentioned Conte's unhappiness. This is something that I kind of touched on earlier on, but because there's no one in the stadiums, you can clearly hear all the interactions. And there was an exasperated Conte screaming at Maresca, "It's always you," the referee. "It's always you, Maresca. It's always you." And then you could hear Maresca responding to him, "You should learn how to lose," or something along those lines. Obviously, a referee shouldn't be responding to a manager, but Conte should know that the cameras are on him and everyone can hear him. It's nuts.
Whenever a referee responds, managers always seem to go over the top about it. Pochettino going crazy at Mike Dean over something seemingly quite innocuous a couple of seasons ago. I guess it's quite rare and kind of riles them in an unexpected way.
I've heard Conte described as being like Mourinho without the sense of humour. Comparison to a previous Inter manager, obviously, and spot on, really.
Yeah, right. That's all we've got time for on Inter, I think. So just a quick roundup of the rest of the teams that we won't get time to talk about, but should just briefly mention. Cagliari have extended Di Francesco's deal. You've put in brackets here, Boaz, bizarrely.
Yeah, I feel that, I mean, this has been a pet peeve of mine all season, but I feel Cagliari have been really underperforming, and that Di Francesco as an appointment was quite uninspired to begin with. The reasoning for extending his contract is to kind of cement the whole team spirit and to make it clear that he's here to stay. But again, I mean, this is the kind of reward that's given to a manager who excels and not someone who's kind of hitting the medium, if not below that.
Yeah, and you have to ask, with Zenga being released at the end of last season, I don't understand. I don't understand how you treat Zenga like that, who did absolutely nothing wrong, really. And yeah, then this is how Di Francesco's treated as weird. Don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. And on the topic of Cagliari, they lost to Genoa, who deserve a mention for winning 1-0. Torino also battled to a draw with Benevento. Anyone else that we want to mention? Maybe reigning champions Juventus won a couple of games. Seem to be back in the title race after we wrote them off last week.
I think I said, don't be so swift to write them off.
You did. It was me banging that drum. So yeah, happy to eat my words if indeed they do mount a comeback. Should we move on then to the transfer talk before we introduce our new feature?
Definitely, let's do it.
So we mentioned that Dzeko's out of favour training alone at Roma. There are rumours that he could be swapped for Alexis Sanchez, who's at Inter.
Yeah, I don't know what Roma get out of this. Their entire attack seems to be built around a player like Edin Dzeko, the captain, obviously, and they're willing to trade him to Inter, and they're going to get a completely different player in return. It's for Roma, it would be a particularly weird one. It's one apparently they've been speaking about today as we record on Thursday, and apparently they've scheduled talks to continue tomorrow, according to press reports. So we'll see what happens, but very, very strange.
You have to consider that Alexis' career has been a really weird one. If you look at all his stops, the clubs he's played at, how long he's been at every club, it's just when he broke out at Udinese, you would never have imagined that this would be a player who would be jumping from one club to another, earning a lot of money and not really playing much.
But anyway, potential for a nice reunion for him and Mkhitaryan, who played together at Arsenal. We've also got on the transfer roundup, Lammers is on his way to either Genoa or Parma on loan.
Yeah, this one, I don't know if there's, the way a lot of loan deals in Italy are structured, there's normally an option or an obligation to buy. I hope that isn't the case in this one, and I can't imagine it is, because obviously he's only been at Atalanta for about 2 minutes. But I think I'm surprised, really. I think he's a player who has got great touch, really, really elegant, and can be absolutely deadly in front of goal from the little that I've seen of him. Gasperini, I'm not sure whether he doesn't fancy the look of him or whether he just thinks he's not ready. Perhaps it's the latter. And who am I to question Gasperini, who's taken Atalanta to 2 consecutive Champions Leagues and on course for possibly a third. But I'm surprised, a little bit disappointed, because I love the look of Lammers.
Kenny, are you not concerned by the fact that Atalanta have sold or loaned out about 8 players, if I'm not mistaken, in this window? Players also who came in, like Piccini, who came from Valencia, was sent packing without having ever hardly played the game. It's kind of, and De Paoli has gone to Benevento. Obviously, we spoke about Gomez. It seems like the team is relying on a very small group of players.
Yeah, well, I think the first 2 that you mentioned, Piccini and De Paoli, were brought in to cover what the vacancy that came up at right back. They needed cover for Hateboer. Piccini was not in the conditions, apparently, that Atalanta had expected. And they've got, I still can't pronounce his name, but they've brought in Mele from Belgium.
Genk.
Yeah, those two I'm not at all surprised about. Gomez, obviously, we've spoken about at length, but it seems like Gasperini's been vindicated. On the whole, loan deals seems to be the way Atalanta have operated for a very long time, and that is how they've done so well out of players like Kulusevski, selling him for 35 million euros with him barely playing a minute of first team football. So
you can add Diallo to that list as well, sold for 35 million to Manchester United.
So no, I'm not concerned, to answer your question.
Sweet.
Okay, these next 2 fit into the Roma. So the case for Roma having had a slightly better week seems like at least the Friedkin conglomerate or the Friedkin consortium is backing them in the transfer market. El Shaarawy, former Roma striker, is on his way back from China. I think there was some problem with his medical. I'm not sure if it's actually been done now.
Yeah, if he recovers from COVID in time to have a medical.
Yeah.
So.
And also they've signed Brian Reynolds, or it looks like they're about to sign Brian Reynolds from FC Dallas. I mean, I've watched his YouTube highlights. He looks incredible. He looks like a world beater, but it is in MLS. So
apparently they pipped Juventus to this signing, so it bodes well.
Yep. And Fernando Llorente has rocked up at Udinese. And speaking of slightly older strikers, Kevin Lasagna looks like he's on his way to Verona. And Boaz, you were going to give us an update on Milic, who we said last week it looked like he was off to Monaco, and he's now officially made the switch, hasn't he?
So the deal was confirmed shortly after we recorded, but Milik released a video that was a tribute to the city of Naples and to the people of Naples, which was kind of had the emotional music and videos of him looking out on the Naples Bay and kind of being a little bit teary-eyed. It was all very Hollywood. And to be honest, it moved me. I was like, wow, this guy was really felt the city. But then I read some comments from our contributor, Marco Postiglione from Naples. And he was like, you're not buying me over. I hope you have the same career at Marseille that you had at Napoli. That is stop, start, stop, start. But at least he didn't comment about his weight. So, that's already a plus point.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe we should get his thoughts on the podcast, but we don't want him to libel anyone. So it may be best if you convey his thoughts to us. Okay, right. Just before we do the honourables and dishonourables, we're introducing our new feature, Good Week, Bad Week, where we pick. Is it going to be definitely just a team, or is it a team or person? What do we think?
I think it should be a team.
Okay, so one team that's had a good week and one team that's had a bad week. So Kenny, I've been trying to make my case for Roma's good week. You haven't been having any of it. So do you have a better suggestion for good week?
Yeah, I mean the obvious one probably because of the headlines would be Atalanta, but I'm actually going to go for Udinese good week. They held Atalanta to a draw when everyone was expecting it to be a easy 3 points for Atalanta in that game that had been suspended due to adverse weather conditions. And then after having faced a team with such high intensity as Atalanta, then just 3 days later had to go and do the same against Inter and held Inter to a point as well. And I think the cherry on the top is that Llorente signing. I'm not sure how good he's going to be, but it kind of feels like a marquee signing for them. So I think good week, Udinese.
It brings up the
It's
sexiness.
handsome, man. Yeah, exactly.
The sexy levels go up at least 20% in the changing room.
Exactly. Oh, I'm completely on board with that. Unless you got any objections, Baz.
I today there is no objections.
Okay. In that case, we need to nominate someone for bad week. I mean, Milan are the obvious candidates.
Yeah, it's not been the best of weeks. They still somehow ended up being winter champions, more because of Inter's capitulation, or rather lack of killer instinct in Udine. They had that loss in the derby, and also a 3-0 loss where they were pretty comprehensively schooled by Atalanta. Arguably, we'd probably give the bad week straight to Zlatan, who was the captain and got sent off and let his team down.
Yeah, so bad week, Milan. I think we can all agree on that one. Right, let's kick off the honourable and dishonourable mentions. As this is a dishonourable for Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo was celebrating his girlfriend's birthday, and apparently he had a resort in posh ski area, Courmayeur. He had a ski resort open specifically for him and his girlfriend, and obviously they posted a bunch of photos on social media of them being in some hot tub while it was snowing. The only problem is Italy is in a really severe lockdown right now, and you're not allowed to move around between regions. So Ronaldo's going to get a mild fine for this, and I worked it out, and apparently if he plays 14 minutes of football, he'll be able to cover the fine for himself and his girlfriend, so that should be all right.
Yeah, it's all right for some. Kenny, we briefly mentioned Juventus had a pretty good week, and you wanted to give an honourable to their goalkeeper.
Yeah, for Szczesny for an all-round rock-solid performance against Bologna. But in particular, I want to give him an honourable mention for a fantastic reflex save from what could only be described as a spectacular effort at an own goal from Cuadrado, diving header, point-blank range. Got a strong hand to it, quick reflexes over the bar. Absolutely fantastic save to cap what was a magnificent performance from Szczesny in that game.
Yeah, we've had quite a lot of mentions of former Arsenal players this week, which I'm not too keen on. But yeah, it definitely deserves his honourable.
And an honourable for leaving Arsenal as well.
Yeah, that's better.
And this is perhaps an aside, but if you consider that Szczesny was the number 2 at Roma just a few years ago, it's quite nuts that Roma had both Alisson and Szczesny as their keepers.
Yeah, now Paul Lopez. And we've got a dishonourable here for EA Sports. Is this related to the feud with Zlatan and other players?
This was actually no. As soon as Milan signed Mandzukic, a patch was created to allow players who were playing with Milan to have him on the squad. The only problem is that they drew him, or they rendered him to look like some 1980s gangster from a really bad video game. He's just like, he has no hair. I think he has no eyebrows. It's pretty much like copy-paste henchman. EA Sports need to do better.
Oh, that is fantastic. I'm just looking at it now. Amazing. Okay, let's finish on a positive note. Kenny, you've got one for Romero.
Yeah, Romero. I mentioned Ilicic in that game against Milan earlier, but Romero was possibly the other contender for man of the match in that, and also absolutely fantastic against Lazio. He actually won the ball up. He had absolutely no right to be where he was on the field when he won the ball for Atalanta's third goal and then provided the assist. But the real honourable mention is for the difference in him from when he joined Atalanta at the start of the season to now. I have to hold my hands up and say that I thought he looked like a bit of a bomb scare at the beginning. He was diving into tackles, mistiming things, and I couldn't really see what Gasperini saw in him, but since then he's come on to be one of the best defenders in Serie A, and I think undoubtedly at the moment the best defender at Atalanta. So honourable mention there, and possibly a dishonourable for myself.
I need to see if that's allowed in the rulebook as the official statistician.
Yeah, well, I think you might have jinxed him now, so I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him this weekend in Atalanta's league game against Lazio. All right, that's all we do have time for this week. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you don't already, please do subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Until then, enjoy the football.